Hello, everyone. My name is Ned Dennison. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. We have an interview today with one of the newest members of the executive committee, Madhu Nagaraja. Madhu, tell us a little bit about where you're from and your life and how you ended up in Canada.
Thanks, Ned, for having me. And I'm originally from India. I grew up in a small, beautiful township or a city called Mysore. That's where my swimming started. Yeah, I started swimming at actually at a very late age. I think when I finished grade 10. However, I did my master's in Mysore, University of Mysore, and I came to North America, came to Boston to do a master's in computer science, and then joined a PhD program at McGill. That's what kind of helped us set a foot in Canada. But I took a job in California, and I was working in California for about 5 years. And when the economy had a downturn in between 2001 and 2004, we decided to move back to Canada. So I've been living in Canada since 2004.
And tell us a little bit about your personal swimming, and I also know you do a bit of running.
So swimming is I think the best thing that has ever happened to me, and I'm sure many swimmers out there agree with me. I started swimming when I finished grade 10. Back in the days, I mean, yeah, a lot of things have changed in India. So some of the things that I quote or state might not be true anymore. So when we finished grade 10, there was a transition to grade 11 and 12, which was called pre-university in India. So we had 2 months of vacation. And we lived actually very close to Mysore University swimming pool, which is an Olympic standard 50-meter swimming pool. So I had nothing else to do, and my parents actually encouraged me to start swimming. And I believe I had already learned to swim, but I was struggling to get from either side of the pool. And as I became a regular, the coach at that point of time, Nabiraj, who was the Mysore University swimming coach, is actually he's an NIS accredited coach, National Institute of Sports. He has actually produced some fantastic swimmers. He noticed that I was a regular there, and being a kid, he said, "Hey," he kind of encouraged me to join a group which would swim before the regular public or the recreational side of the group would join. The only tricky thing was, I mean, I had to be there at 5:30 in the morning, but it was free. So that's what actually led me to start swimming. And slowly, I mean, I worked on the swimming strokes. And fortunately for me, Nabiraj focused on technique. So I think that's what has actually kind of helped me. I'm 50 years old now. That has helped me sustain like in open water, long distance swimming this long. So a quick message to anybody out there is like, okay, believe in science, physics, and technique. Okay. So that's how my swimming started, Ned.
And then you've done a number of marathons. Tell us a little bit about those.
Running was, I'm not a skilled runner. I'm not even a skilled swimmer. I had to work hard. So running was always a cross training for me for during my pool swimming days and during my open water swimming days. And like the element of adventure that comes in with open water swimming lured me into trail running. And I like through a friend, I came across this race called Marathon des Sables, which which is a multi-day stage run. The distance is over about 256 kilometers, and it happens in a small section of the Sahara Desert in Morocco and in the Moroccan Sahara region. Yeah. So I've done that, and then I've done a couple of staged 100-mile trail runs, and yeah, that's about it. I've done a couple of I've done a marathon, and I've done a couple of half marathon. I'm not somebody who does a lot of events, although I do like training runs, which are at times greater than a distance of a marathon, but I don't like run too many marathons or go after too many swims.
In the marathon swimming world, you've got the English Channel and Great Lakes, and
yeah, again, same philosophy. Yeah, I've done the English Channel. I've swum across Lake Ontario, and I've done Straits of Magellan, and I participated in a relay swim across Bobby Channel, and I've swum in all the Great Lakes. Actually, a neat thing that we did was we swam a mile in each of the Great Lakes in less than 24 hours. Yeah, traveling about 1,700 kilometers with a bunch of friends. I think that's it was. I think that was fantastic. Yeah.
And Madhu, one of the ways that you and I first came into touch years ago was you were doing quite a bit of organizing in Canada. Tell us a little bit about the things you've done and the people involved.
So we moved back to, like, the tricky thing for me was when I swam across the English Channel, there was also a transition, because the reason for me to swim across the English Channel was because I had lost my job and I had nothing else to do in US. So we were also moving to Canada at that point of time. The tricky thing was we just had our first child, Vivek, who was 7 months old. So we were, the plan was to swim across the English Channel and move to Canada. Whoever does with a little baby. So moved to Canada, and the only person I knew at that point of time was Rob Kent. Rob Kent was very active. In fact, I met Rob Kent in a syndication called Smart Groups back in 2002, 2003, the primitive days of internet. Okay, so we didn't have social media, social network, the traditional emails. So he was the only person I knew. Rob Kent was actually interested in swimming across the channel, so I knew Rob Kent, and we decided to live in this township just because Rob Kent lived here. That was the only person I knew. And we chose to live very close to Lake Ontario. In fact, I'm only 800 meters from Lake Ontario. And just chatting with Rob, we decided to start a group very similar to Southern Rowing Club and Dolphin Club in San Francisco. So we wanted to start a community. In fact, I think when I moved to Canada, Rob Kent actually took me to a small lake, which was about 20 kilometers up north here, called Kelso Lake. And I had trouble swimming in it because water was pitch green, bottled green, and a lot of algae in it. Stagnant water, small lake. I've always swum in San Francisco and English Channel, like bigger bodies of water. So, and that's when we decided that hey, we should start something. And one thing led to another. Rob and I started Lost Swimming, and with a big focus of targeting triathletes. That was Rob's goal. And then as I met more people, we decided to start Great Lakes Open Water Adventures, but with a big focus on encouraging people living by the Great Lakes to embrace the lake and be in it or be on it or be around it and make the lakes as their own. And also with a focus on environmental initiatives, like making sure, okay, the plastic, the garbage, also highlighting pollutants getting into the lake, or educating people around the lake to embrace the lake and make sure, okay, that keep the lakes clean. And the adventure portion was also very critical. So that's where we decided to swim in different, in all the 5 Great Lakes. So we swim in the lake every morning before sunrise, because we all have regular real lives. We have to pay bills. So we get to have fun in like first thing in the morning, and we swim, we have a cup of coffee. And the community has actually grown from 2-3 swimmers to thousands, actually. Yeah. There are smaller groups that are formed, and people are not afraid to highlight okay, issues with the lake. People are not afraid to talk about safeties. So the big focus on the community is educating people about safety, how to embrace, or how to embrace the lake and how to be part of it, by making sure they're safe. And also, like, I mean, not to be afraid of it. So I've taken out swimmers who are new to the pool from couch to a 1 mile swim. So these are like, I mean, like memorable things that happen with within the community.
So this is a common story around the world, and hopefully people pick up on it. I call them pods of swimmers, like dolphins.
Pods of swimmers, yeah.
And it might be starting with one person who actually says hello to the only other person that swims in the same place.
Exactly.
Actually says hello. Then there's a shared cup of coffee or a shared cup of tea or whatever it is, and if there's cake involved, the whole thing accelerates rapidly.
Exactly.
And those 2-3 swimmers start communicating with others by text or WhatsApp or Facebook or email, whatever it is. And there's a series of encouragement and mentoring.
Exactly.
Can you stay in for more 10 minutes? Can you do a mile? Can you do 5 miles? Whatever it might be. And then you've then created a community. There's probably another 30 or 40 things you can do in the community, but that's kind of always the way it starts. And I think that, looking back on the last 15 years, an explosion of interest in open water swimming. And it's because those pods of swimmers really took off in thousands of places around the world.
That is true. Yeah, I agree with you, Ned. Yeah.
So tell us your observations before you became involved with the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. You were looking at it from a distance. What did you think it was? And then we'll talk about how you got involved.
It was always a place of respect for me because of all the people that are inducted in it. Yeah. Because many a times, at least for me, when I take up on adventures, I look at the history, look at all the things that have happened, all the failures, all the characters that have done this before me. And there are several sections to an adventure. There is the adventure itself and the characters that are going after those adventures. So in my case, the adventure actually has a finite list of attributes, but the characters actually teach me how to be a better person, because I'm going after an adventure where I have no skills. So I have to learn from these characters. So International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame was one place where I could refer to or pick these characters. And many times, actually, I pick up the traits. I learn from them. It has helped me become a better person. It's not just about getting from or getting through that adventure, but it's also becoming a better person holistically. Not just the physical aspect of it. I just want to quote Anne Cleveland, who I actually met in 2004 in Dover. She had just done a double crossing, and we were. I just finished my swim, and I was writing my name on White Horse Inn, and she was there to celebrate with me, and she actually told me something. Because I mean, she was an active participant in the smart groups, and like we were just chatting about all the different things, different people that get involved in the sport. And her quote was, many people get to the point. She was referring Cape Greenie, but don't get the point. So I've always held on to that. So there is a bigger purpose than just crossing from point A to point B. Because fortunately for me, although my training was very difficult for the English Channel, my crossing was uneventful. I mean, that's how I want all my swims to be. That's how I wish all swims to be out there. So IMSHOF has been a place for me to refer to these idols, these characters. And now, being part of the executive committee, and I'm learning about the organization, because I mean, although I have actually, I'm not a born leader. I've learned my leadership style or picked up my leadership skills watching others, committee members, people at work, people at these adventures and the community that I belong to. Ethics and integrity and the class that it has. And I'm learning a lot as I am associated with different committee members, which is actually very important. An organization like this, for it to sustain and to operate at a very high level, these traits are very, very important. And it's not just the organization, but it's also people associated with it are very important. Because many times, I mean, yeah, I've been part of associations or organizations, although they hold high standards, but the way they operate, some of the people that are associated with it, you don't always have fun. You don't always have like, okay, hey, there is some purpose here. I'm gaining something. I'm learning something. I'm contributing something. You don't have that fulfilledness. But that's not the case in IMSHOF. We have very purposeful meetings. And it's fun to be part of the 4 other committee members. The way we operate, the way we make sure, okay, that the objectives are met, the standards are kept. So that's my observation being part of the committee right now.
So in every one of these pods around the world, in every organization, for every event, with a few exceptions, they're run with a lot of volunteers. And one of the, I guess, the messages that I try to drill through to swimmers is that you actually owe it to the sport to volunteer every now and then. So in the case of Madhu, we included a newsletter that we're looking for volunteers for various different roles. And Madhu stuck his hand up and said, I'm interested in helping. And he brought a number of things to our committee. First of all, he was an established marathon swimmer, which helped. Second, he was a proven organizer. Next, he had this interesting, grew up in India, lived in the US, now in Canada. English was not his first language. And as the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame, we need to be really, really careful that we're international, we're global. And English isn't the first language everywhere. In some places, it's not the language at all. Madhu also had a number of IT skills, which the rest of us didn't have. So we're trying to run a Facebook page, a website, Instagram. We're trying to do electronic storage of key documents. And then finally, Madhu already knew a number of existing honorees, people like Lynn Cox, people like Marilyn Bell, Liz Fry. So he was already connected. So he came in. He came in the summer of 2021. It was a quiet introduction. He was on probation for some months. and then we announced him later in the year. He's the only member of the committee who's not an honoree, so that provides an interesting perspective as well. Have you gotten any surprises, Madhu, in your sort of almost a year now?
No, actually, yeah. I've been associated with you on and off since 2005 or 2006, I believe, right? And I always knew what you were doing, and I kind of related to your personality, so it was easy to work with you. And it was like an easy. I think you guys kind of embraced me easily. You guys let me in part of the group. You didn't. There was no tricky initiation or anything. So I didn't have to pass a test, or I didn't have to climb a fence, which was yeah. So that was neat. And yeah, I think it was just being myself, and wherever I could add value, wherever I could. I think my contributions have been very little, like supporting, assisting. So that's where I have been primarily. I'm still learning because I mean, like as I mentioned, yeah, IMSHOF as an organization, Hall of Fame as an organization is a different kind of entity. So it needs, in terms of decision making, in terms of making sure diversity, integrity, ethics are kept. So these are like some of the primary traits that we always need to focus on. We're not focusing on revenue generating. We're not focusing on promoting. We're not focusing on. So I need to make sure, okay, hey, I need to remove those aspects. And how do we make sure, okay, it's always about ethics, integrity, and high standards. So those are the core philosophies or core traits that we need to focus or at least embrace. And we never sacrifice that while we are operating. So that's something that I'm actually learning.
So one of your main jobs was to essentially take over the Facebook page. Before you took it over, we tried to do a birthday greeting for honorees, and they were pretty succinct. It's probably, happy birthday, Trent Grimsey, full stop, next message. And what you've done is you've come in and tried to make those much richer. You've pulled in video, you've pulled in history. And I think by the time we get to October, you'll have run through the entire 315, I believe it is, set of honorees. And it's forced you to learn a little bit about those characters. And I think one of the things that is hard for people to understand is, for an honoree that was swimming in the last 20 years, there's a wealth of information available.
Yes.
But for the honorees who swam in 1920 or something, they may have only done a couple of big swims. There may be a couple of lines in a major newspaper about their achievements, and we don't have a lot else. And one of the things you've done is you've helped us go back and unearth just a little bit more. And sometimes that little bit more is half of what we knew.
I mean, yeah, internet is a source of wealth, but I also have I think I've shared this with you. I have a bad habit of getting lost on the internet. So I'm actually very careful when I take on those initiatives, because, I mean, you can go through this rat hole and find information about people, things that they've done, things that they've achieved, which is amazing. And fortunately, it's adding value to IMSHOF. But I don't think I've done a lot, but I think we have more work to do there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're trying to branch out a little bit on the interviews, and Madhu's again volunteered to help. So a lot of our interviews have been one-on-one. We've done a couple of interviews where we put panels together, and we did a kind of a famous one where we talked about hallucinations and outer body experiences. and Dr. Vicky Keith, an honoree from Canada, who did some incredible butterfly swims of 100+ hours. You told us that the hallucinations started at about 75 hours. Dr. David Smith told us about some interesting out-of-body experiences where he literally could see himself looking down on himself as he was swimming. Madhu, you wouldn't be aware, but I'm putting together Lynn Cox and Dr. David Smith on Saturday at the South End Rowing Club. She's doing a book launch there. He's the first person to swim from Morocco to Gibraltar. She was the second person to swim. So the first male, the first female have never met each other. They're going to meet each other. And I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy the 1, 2, 5, 10 minutes of conversation, because that's real history of our sport.
Yes, yes.
One of the ones I'm trying to put together, and hopefully Trent is listening to this, is I'd like to put together Trent Grimsey, Damian Blaum, his support swimmer, a couple of Irish crew and the pilot on his record-breaking English Channel swim. I'd like to put them all in a call. So they say, well, okay, Trent, you didn't really have a lot to do with this. You were swimming. What it was really happening on the boat. Damian, when you went in, did Trent need a kick in the backside to go faster? Crew, how were you preparing the feeds? Pilot, what were you doing? What were all of the things that went around that swim? I've not put together that call yet, but I'd be fascinated. I just listen.
I have a warning for you. Do you really want to put Irish and the Aussies together? That's going to be a riot.
Well, we'll see. I think some of that conversation will be fascinating to people.
I think that's going to be a fantastic conversation. Yeah.
And we might get Petr Trochev to come in and pitch in. The rumor I heard was that he was throwing advice out while Trent was swimming to help him break his own record. And that's a kind of an interesting kind of topic on that. I guess the final question for you, Madhu, and try to inspire other people. Why is it you volunteer, and what do you get out of it? What's your joy? What's your reward? Why do you do these things?
So, Ned, one thing to be fair is I don't think I volunteer a lot. I do a little bit, but not a lot. But the advantage that I gain is when you go to these, when you arrange or build these communities, people from the entire spectrum get to be part of it. And it's an opportunity for me to learn from everybody. That's one thing that I have, a big thing that I have noticed is I focus on is building solid, cohesive teams. So I'm always focused on people when I'm working with in these volunteer based organizations. So I'm always learning. I'm always picking on skills or traits or values or problem solving skills. So that's one of the biggest benefits that I have. But do I volunteer a lot? I do a little bit. Yeah, not a lot. I don't have a lot of time because I have a young family and a busy work and with what I do at IMSHOF. But I'm hopefully there'll be a time where I can do a lot more volunteering. Yeah. But I offer support and things that I've learned in the past to budding swimmers out there. Open water swimming is such a tricky thing. It's such a personal sport. You can only share experiences, and you can say, "Hey," but you have to make it your own. So I can only share my experience and how we dealt with situations. That's the only thing that I can do. I can't problem solve for another person. They have to go through that because that's what the sport demands. That's how adventures are, right? So
it's one of the things that I think more and more mentors understand, which is when somebody calls me up and says, they're female, they're just starting with marathon swimming, they're in their 40s, they're on the slower side of average, and they're located in Florida, I say, I know just the person for you to talk to. Somebody else who fits a similar pattern in Florida.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be the right person necessarily to advise them, but I can set them up with a better mentor.
Exactly.
Madhu, for those who are wondering if you really do volunteer, the IMSHOF Facebook page, International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame, there's a post on there just about every single day from you on behalf of the organization, which hopefully is highlighting some achievements, some epic adventure. And you know, there are people in the community that will find that interesting, and they'll certainly learn from it. So I want to thank you very much for all of your help, and we'll keep you working for a few more years now.
Absolutely. And give Lynn Cox a big hug for me. Okay. And I have a before we end this call, I have a nice story with Lynn Cox. Lynn Cox being a legend of our sport. The first time I met her was in a bookshop in Santa Cruz, California. There are about 100 people there, 100 plus people, and I'm the only Indian there. Okay, like you can see the number of open water swimmers. This is back in 2003. I walk in. I mean, this is for Swimming to Antarctica book signing. I'm there. I go. It's my turn. I'm standing in front of her with my name and everything. Instead of me saying hi to Lynn, Lynn says, "I know you." That's how Lynn talks to me. And I'm like, I wanted to say like a few things to Lynn, and I'm like him. So that's how I met Lynn. Okay. So Lynn is, as you mentioned, I think she's a legend, and she's like I think she's the greatest ambassador of our sport. And just a wonderful person. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Madhu.
Cheers.